Welcome to another Roll for Crit podcast, the official podcast for the online board game website, rollforcrit.com. My name is Jonathan Estes.
And I'm Will Keeler. And in today's board game news, 400 years ago was the first time they decided that six-sided dice were the proper form for dice rolling, instead of giving an alligator six numbers and hoping and seeing which one it spits out.
Wow. I mean, that's really well. I remember that because I'm a time traveler. And I was one of the people present at the meeting. And the alligators were not in favor.
No, they weren't.
They lost a lot of jobs that day. But I think in the end, it worked out. It worked out okay. That reminds me of another, before we start, I want to warm up the crowd a little bit. I have a board game joke.
Okay.
You want to hear my board game joke?
No, but you're going to say it anyways.
All right. So how does board game designer...
How does board game designer...
That's not the joke. Let me finish.
You're right. This is a great joke.
How does board game designer Bruno Cathala order a drink at a restaurant?
I assume he looks at the menu, sees what he decides, what
You're
he
close.
likes most.
You're right. Wow. But then the waiter or waitress comes up to the table and says, "Does this drink look good?" And he says, "Yeah, Mai Tai." Yeah, Mai Tai. It sounds like the game of the morning. All right, we're off to a great start. I'm here to warm up the crowd. Folks, we've been working hard all day. But we do have some good news for you on one of our last long-form podcasts ever. Really serious stuff, so let's get serious. Here's something that happened in 2017, but we had kind of a hiatus, so there's some stuff that we're playing catch-up on this week. First off, Fantasy Flight launched they announced their new interactive division. And the first product they've officially said is going to be coming out from that company is the Lord of the Rings digital version of the living card game that currently exists.
Yeah, this is a bit of a surprise because when we first heard about their division, we're like, oh, they're taking their properties but making whole new things in video games.
We kind of thought they were going to go in the direction of more like a traditional video game, less like an adaptation of a board game. From the sounds of this, it's pretty close to just an adaptation of the LCG. What we know about it so far, pretty much the same. It seems like they've streamlined a lot of stuff because of the digital translation. Deck building, I know, is a little bit different. Some of the cards may be tweaked. It's going to be free to play. It's still going to be an LCG style, meaning there won't be blind packs or anything like that. But you will be able to spend real money, of course, to buy additional cards. I know it's going to be in early access starting pretty soon, if it's not already by the time of this video, pretty soon, Q1 of this year. And there's like some founders packs you can buy and things like that. But for the most part, free to play, free to start, to be released later in the year. And it will have both solo and co-op modes. But yeah, there's some, I don't know, being a person I have yet to play the Lord of the Rings LCG. Is there anything, when you play it, do you think it would work well as a digital version? Or is there something about it you think might even work better as a digital version or wouldn't work?
Well, plenty of card games, it's sort of nice when you have the digital version sometimes because it's like, if there's a trigger you forget or something, the game will remind you.
Right.
So usually that's the one nice thing about it. And I do feel that if we are just going to port one of their games early on, maybe early on to make the initial money to then help fund later ones. I'm being optimistic here. Because as we said in our previous when we first announced, there's plenty of stuff to make good stories. I do think this is a good one. It hits the solo group very well, which I think is much bigger in the digital area. And it still has the co-op. The Lord of the Rings has a huge title name attached to it, which is going to be great. I'd like to see them, since it's digital, they might as well maybe see if they can do some weird special, maybe in the Founders Pack, or because they do standalone stories sometimes, but crossover with the recent Lord of the Rings game, like something that involves that character and that storyline.
Well, and they're also supposedly launching that new Amazon Lord of the Rings TV show. Maybe I wonder if there's any thought about synergy there, trying to launch with that, or if they would ever incorporate any of that to either the digital or the regular card game.
I don't
know.
I don't think that would get too many fans of the original angry. I don't think the video game pushed any buttons, so that could be a cool thing. Yeah. But like I said, I would love to see them really take the titles that aren't already big, like Star Wars and Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, it was a little disappointing. I think maybe, unfortunately, our hopes were too high, and maybe it does seem like it's going to be an awesome adaptation of this game. We thought they were going to like really make video games. And it seems like from this first one, we'll see what happens.
But like I said, I think I'm still optimistic. I think it's one of those, look, it's our first stuff. We want to make sure we make the starting money to fund the other things. And I think the LCGs are a no-brainer, especially they're almost like a great way to just taunt the video game system, because when you usually think cards, you think of Magic the Gathering, which are random packs, or the loot boxes we've talked about before. So you're like, hey, look at this card game. Set packs.
Is this the first digital card game of that type that has done that?
No idea.
Yeah, I can't think of any that, like Hearthstone, the Gwent, I think.
Dragon Forge, was that the VR one?
Oh yeah, Dragon, whatever the VR one was from Oculus. Dragon Front, that's what it was.
I knew it had an F in it.
And the upcoming, like the Elder Scrolls one, I'm pretty sure they're all random packs. So yeah, that could be a big deal for people who don't really know that LCGs exist, to get this new way of having.
And I do know that the Lord of the Rings game, the previous one, while it wasn't as bad, I think just because the way the game worked as like Star Wars or Destiny, it had a loot box system. So then it'd be like, no loot box over here, and everyone's like...
Yeah, that could be a thing. You don't have to pay $800 for Frodo or whatever.
No, you just need to get all the cards. But I mean, like I said, I did enjoy the game. I do think it's fun. Really, this only comes to this point not because we don't like the game, but just because we were hoping that they'd take some more risks. But I'm going to stay optimistic and say this is more of just to help fund until they get to the more interesting stuff.
Well, either way, it's free to play. It's going to be in early access on Steam soon, so not much of a risk in at least just trying it out once it comes out. So that's Lord of the Rings Online. Look for that early this year, hopefully, unless something happens. I don't know. Now, there was another interesting item that also kind of happened around late in December.
Yeah.
That involves one of your favorite properties.
And a company that I have a lot of faith in as well.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah, so there was a big interview with Wizards of the Coast, a new designer. Not designer, like head of all the games and stuff. And he announced, it's not official, it said in the article, but to me, I mean, he said it.
It was kind of like he was like, here's a thing that we haven't announced yet.
Yeah, but it's a Transformers card game. This would actually use two different decks, he said. One would be heroes, and the other said power-ups and stuff.
And to be clear, two different decks for each player at a time.
And I believe he said the cards are double-sided, because, I mean, you have to be able to go from vehicle to person. I mean, and that's just the two. I mean, there are plenty of guys who go have like at least 3 different forms, so God knows how that's going to work. But I mean, I love the Transformers, and I think that's one of the properties I've always been saying I want into a game.
Yeah.
I'm disappointed. This is a CCG, so little disappointment there. And what's interesting, though, is he's part of this Transformers thing is that he calls his new program, I forget the guy's name off the top of my head, but he calls it Castles and Boats.
Right, I saw this quote.
Magic the Gathering and D&D are their castles. They're big properties. They know that they're great. They're going to put a lot of resources to make sure they stay fortified. Transformers, he calls it, was a boat. It's something they send out. They see how it floats and how it goes.
It also sounded, I kind of read it as maybe the castles are sort of set in the ground and can't be changed as much, whereas Transformers, they have a little more freedom maybe to
I think so, but that's probably because it's new. I think almost it's...
Yeah,
but
maybe they can like plan not to have to ban 800 cards a year at the start.
Oh, do not get Magic players getting started on talking about bans.
I already did.
But, so I'm a little disappointed there. I understand where he's coming from and they're testing the waters, but you have to understand you sort of ruined the CCG market. I mean, we've said this 100 times.
As well as created it.
Right. You're too good at it. But I'm hoping at the very least they're willing to give, assuming this means they have the right to Transformers, that you're going to give it some room to grow possibly maybe into other forms. Maybe you'll switch from the CCG like Dice Masters into an LCG style.
Well, it's very interesting because now Wizards of the Coast, what else, did they do that Harry Potter card game that was around for a couple of years?
I remember a long time, I assume.
Because it's, it seems like really for the longest time they have Magic. They don't need another CCG.
Right.
So it's very interesting that they would decide to go all in on Transformers, which at the end of the day, really almost there's a big risk of cannibalizing their own sales, and managing both of those properties under the same roof is going to be complicated. But it sounds like they have some interesting, the double-sided thing, two decks, it sounds different.
It's definitely different, and I think that will help stand out. And it says it's aiming towards collectors, which is a very scary thing.
I actually there's a quote, he said, aimed both at young teens and the collector and toy audience. And then I was like, is that different from Magic? Is that not also aimed at young teens and collector and toy audience?
I think a little bit. The difference is Magic is also aimed, I mean more or less, but at the pro, like literally the game. Mm-hmm. This feels like it's a collectible that has a game attached to it. It sounds like, which I'm worried about too.
Yeah, interesting.
Because I mean, I am part of the second group. Unfortunately, I have passed out of the first one. But I've got a lot of the toys. They do come with these little cardboard cards, which are sort of cool, mostly for the artwork, because it's really nice to see some of the artwork of the characters. But I'm like, get them in random packs now? Do I have to now see singles of my favorite guys and who just happen to be up in price because they're the more popular ones?
Yeah. He also said that the cards would be bigger than a normal trading card. So
tarot cards?
I don't know if that means more expensive too, or you're going to get fewer cards per pack. Or maybe they're Wizards of the Coast, so they just eat those costs. I don't know how much bigger, but he said oversized. Interesting. But that is going to be coming out in the fall of this year, and it is a big deal. It's a brand new CCG from Wizards of the Coast. That's a big deal.
I won't lie, even though I've used the word worried and disappointed a lot, I'm gonna buy it. At least, I assume they have a starter set.
Yeah, at least you got to jump in on that.
Yeah, and I want to see how it goes because I did love. There was I remember I played a while. There's a Transformer app that uses card games. I'm betting actually, if I were to boot up that app and look at the artwork, it's going to be the same artwork brought over. But I mean, we'll see. And I did enjoy it for a bit, but then obviously it's a free-to-play app. You know that hits the paywall.
Right.
So I mean, we'll see what this brings.
Yeah.
But
see if they do
something besides the CCG with this. I mean,
Michael
you can do
Bay
both.
Expansion.
I'm fine. No. That's fine if there's both in there.
Okay, yeah.
I'm okay with that.
They did show some of the art, which you can see behind us, which does look pretty nice. So yeah, again, October, we'll see. Transformers CCG, your mileage may vary. Mileage, because they turn into cars. Mm-hmm. Funny. Finally, another interesting licensed game announcement. IDW had previously put out an XFiles board game a couple years ago that neither of us really liked. And they just announced another one that has a few weird layers to it. It's called XFiles Conspiracy Theory, and it's a storytelling party game. And actually, from the description of it, it made me think of a game we recently played, which was Cthulhu Tales. Essentially, one player takes on the role of Mulder, and everyone else is an FBI director. And Mulder is trying to convince them of a story of what happened on his adventure. And instead, it came with an alternate mode too, based on Jose Chung, which is one of the popular episodes. And it's part of this. It's actually part of this series, which is called Everything Is Connected. And the same designer, this guy named Matt Fantastic.
Fantastic.
What a great name. Worth it for that name alone. The first game was based on the Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency TV series that was recently on TV and just got canceled. But both like the same, I believe, another storytelling style, and it's going to be like this series of games with different themes, I guess.
Can I mix the cards?
I don't know. You probably could. I don't know.
Can I tell a story of aliens And then I don't know what other properties.
I don't know what happened in.
Well, if we look at properties IDW already has, can I tell a story about the Gray Men abduct me, then centipedes come along, in which then the firebenders attack.
They've got quite a few under their belt. Ninja Turtles could be in there. So that's interesting. Also, they alluded to, it sounds like this is the first of maybe multiple other X-Files games coming out this year, because I think it's an anniversary, plus the new season is coming out. But it doesn't sound like it's going to be big games. If this is anything to go by, it's going to be a bunch of these smaller titles.
I mean, we enjoyed our time with Cthulhu. With the
Cthulhu Tales.
Thank you. So an X-File one sounds even better, because that even sounds more hilarious to the idea of you playing Mulder. You know, like, especially if you're a fan, like trying to explain.
Yeah, there's definitely some fun that could come from that. Some cool lore stuff you could put in there.
It makes me think sort of like what was the episode? I think like he has amnesia or something. I think there's a videotape. I think because like someone tried to make a fake alien abduction, but then a real one happened at the same time.
That might be I think you're talking about the Jose Chung episode, which was what was included, where the guy.
Oh, I thought you said recent. That's why I was like, oh.
No. Yeah, older episode. Yeah,
okay,
for sure. But yeah,
it's been a while since I watched it.
But yeah, it's all about the storytelling and the making, whether you believe it or not. Yeah, I think that's a big part of this game.
So I mean, I'm excited to see more from this, because this seems more what we'd want.
Yeah, I think the first one was disappointment because it didn't have as much theme as I wanted. So this is definitely more on the theme side, but also even lighter than that on the mechanics side. So
it is, but I feel like it works with the theme of X-Files and telling a story and trying to be believed.
Yeah, for sure. I do want to believe that this game will be good. That's going to be later this year from IDW, X-Files Conspiracy Theory. Kickstarters. We got a few big ones for you. Two especially that are very big. The first one we're going to talk about is kind of just because we had to, is the big release this week from CMON called Hate.
And we hate it. No, just kidding.
I don't know. Well, it's based on a graphic novel series called The Chronicles of Hate, which I've never read. I don't think you've ever read it. We never read it.
I did not know about this until the game came out.
I didn't know either. I knew this game was coming. I had no idea it was based on anything. From CMON, from the team that brought you Zombicide, and according to their Kickstarter, under the supervision of Eric Lang. Of course, he works at CMON now, so I guess all their games.
Yeah, I was about to be like, isn't everything
under his supervision? Yeah, so take that as however much you think input he had. But it's basically a miniatures battle war game. This very gritty, bloody, violent tone, kind of like a Conan thing, but way
I was about to say
more hardcore.
Sort of. I want to say it's like Viking time era, but think of Raiders from Fallout, like the skulls and everything, like, you know, and almost people just giving up and gone completely insane.
Yeah, I'll be honest. So watching the Kickstarter video, the tone really kind of turned me off. And I think it's something that people might either love or hate. The game is well past funded right now, but it's very in your face. They curse a lot in the video. It almost, I feel, crosses over into the realm of self-parody, or it's just a little. It feels like a 90s, like, extreme. It's so violent and in your face, and how cool is this? And I'm kind of like, it's not that cool to me anymore.
I know they announced that. I'm wondering if this is part of it, but like they start saying like, we're gonna make some games that are only gonna be sold through our site.
That's the other thing. This game is, so it's $100. I'm just gonna come out with it, $120
for the base.
That's it. In fact, that's
okay.
There's only one tier, $120, and you will never see this game anywhere else. Kickstarter exclusive.
Their own site.
According to their campaign, maybe down the line, but what it says on the page is Kickstarter exclusive. So I'm sure if they maybe would do a second Kickstarter printing. But yeah, so, and they said because one, I think because it's so expensive to produce. Two, because they said specifically it's so violent and for mature audiences that they think it's harder to get that audience outside of Kickstarter. So it's interesting.
Yeah, I'm going to have to disagree with those points. I do think it's because it's expensive. I'll agree with you there. I think it's because it has a much narrower audience, not because it's violent, because Cards Against Humanity.
That's true. That's true.
I think it's because it's based on a property which, as far as we know, it's not like an obvious one if you say people are going to know. And because of that, to me, when I looked at it, I could have sworn I've seen some of these models before. Like, the artwork looks sort of very...
It's generic. I think is a fair term.
Like, maybe you said Conan. I think from some of their own games, I think I've seen it. And I know a bunch of other
Zombicide, Black Plague.
Well, not even Zombicide. Zombicide's a bit more cartoony, but, like...
Yeah.
At least I think they're CMON games. It's just... I think I've seen it before, and I just don't know if it'd be like, is it worth it? And a lot of I know, is Rising Sun them?
Yep.
Like, that's coming out this year. So, and that's different. We've played it and have really enjoyed it. Their other one,
Song of Ice and Fire is coming out this year.
Song of Ice and Fire. They also have remember, this is a Kickstarter, so, but I know I backed it. It's based on their Majesty line. It was another miniatures game.
I know what you're talking about, but I will never remember the name if you don't. So,
so that's coming out too.
They have a lot of
mini games, and like this one doesn't feel to be, at least for me, to be worth putting into right now.
It had some cool stuff to it. Like, there's some interesting like terrain mechanics that come into play with the battles, but honestly, for me, the game might be kind of fun, but really the theme, and that rarely happens with me, really just the theme of it I wasn't feeling. But I don't know, we'll see what happens. Also, it'll be an interesting experiment if people, well, the experiment's successful so far because they, like I said, well overfunded. So if you want a copy, check that out. That's called Hate, which is
Let us know if you backed in why we're completely wrong.
Yeah, if you've read the comic, that'd be very interesting to hear your perspective.
I mean, if you read the comic, then yeah, I'd say that's probably makes much more sense.
Yeah.
I'm not going to blame you for liking something.
I will blame you for liking anything you like. Now, next up is the game Nemesis.
Yes, another game that has been well funded.
Yeah, a game that we had a bit of a fight over as to who would get to back it. So, Nemesis, is published by Awaken Realms, who also published This War of Mine and Lords of Hellas. They're really making a big push for these Kickstarter, and I believe the designer is also the guy who did Lords of Hellas.
Yeah, and this game, I want to say it's everything you like. The game itself is you're on a spaceship. You love space.
Love space.
And you are trying to survive. Thing is, everyone has their own goals, and odds are they probably don't care if other people die to get the goals done.
Yeah, it's semi-cooperative. There are hidden objectives, things that can change along the way.
People can turn into aliens, and there are actually different alien groups, I think, at least through Kickstarter, so that means you might not always fight the same kind of creatures.
The aliens can actually evolve over time, so depending on how long your game takes, that might happen. There are, of course, several large minis included, and I would say reminiscent might be too soft a word, but I don't know if plagiarism is quite necessary. But certainly the minis look like xenomorphs. Right?
I definitely was gonna say it's heavily inspired, except instead of, I mean, the aliens by themselves, but instead of the regular crew of the ship, everyone's the android.
Yeah,
with their secret goal. That's pretty much.
And you can be what they had, like a scout, scientist, soldier.
It was a scout, soldier, medic. No, the medic was you had to back it within 24 hours.
You missed out.
I think at least. Maybe it's like free then.
Yeah, maybe.
There's a scientist who's in a wheelchair. I never consider like this badass like laser futuristic wheelchair. And I think there's one more. Did we say pilot?
Pilot.
Yeah, that's the
one. You can go look at the page. Anyway, yeah, the game looks really cool. I mean,
we're big fans of aliens, and like I said, semi-hidden roles for everyone though, which is fun because then you have to be like, not because are you the Cylon? You have to be like, do I trust you enough that you're not just trying to get your own?
Yeah, big gorgeous art. Sounds like a lot of variation in what can happen from game to game. A lot of cool things going on. It is a big expensive one. Not as expensive as as Hate. It's $97 for that core box.
With a whole lot of stretch goals.
Yeah, including all the stretch goals.
And we should mention that just like this War Mine, sound is back.
Oh yeah, you can maybe make noise, and the aliens will find you.
And I'm excited because we played this War Mine and we loved it. We thought great adaptation, and I'm curious because the app has a function where you can actually literally put your phone down and it'll listen for noise. So if they do something for that, like that for this,
seems like a no-brainer to carry over.
it'd be terrifying and fantastic.
And we didn't play Lords of Hellas, but it looked really cool. So liking the things coming out of this publisher for sure. So that's Nemesis, $97. Finally, if you don't have that kind of money, there was one little game that I thought looked kind of cute called Noises at Night. And basically the way this game works is you're a bunch of kids in... Oh, actually, you're not a bunch of kids. You're a bunch of characters in Grandpa's creepy old house.
I don't like where this is going. Is there going to be an old lady shouting Yahtzee?
Could be. And you hear weird noises at night. And everyone's going to have a secret role. So you could be the kid, you could be the mom or the dad, or you could be like a ghost or a boogeyman. There's different weird stuff going on. And there's going to be different locations, and your card is going to tell you a certain symbol type and a certain location. And you're going to get points at the end of the game if there are clue cards, which you will place under your specific location, or if your symbol shows up anywhere. And anyone can play clue cards at any time with different symbols to different locations that have different effects. And there are going to be points throughout the game where, based on the clues people have put out and where they've put things, you're trying to also guess what everyone else is. And the earlier you guess, the more points it's worth. The later you guess, the fewer points it's worth. So it's like a deduction hit and roll game, but it's also semi-cooperative, because if you put some of your cards face up, they count as points for the whole group. So there's interesting stuff at play there, and it's a very cute art style. It's only, they say, 15 minutes to play. Definitely something I think younger gamers could get into.
Now, does anyone play the grandpa?
I don't know. Maybe that's like the final boss.
I feel like this is going to end up like a certain video game. I don't want to say because it is spoiling it, where you find out that the monster was just one of your something you knew the whole time.
I do remember that game. Good tease. Yeah. Anyway, it looked cute. Noises at Night. It's for $19 on Kickstarter right now.
Much less than our two previous games.
Yeah.
It's almost like if you remove the minis, games drop in price.
It's crazy, isn't it? Those minis, man. Those minis. All right, now let's check in on the Meeple Gallery, because there's some interesting stuff. Last week, we did our top anticipated games of 2018. Really, it was just a few days ago, which has a ton of stuff. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch that, because there's some really cool games coming out.
There's a lot coming out.
A lot. Including this one that we missed. Creature X99 says, I'm anticipating...
Oh, I thought that was the game, because that sounds like a pretty interesting game.
Sounds like a cool game. No, they said, I'm anticipating Too Many Bones Undertow from Chip Theory Games. Are you familiar with the Too Many Bones games?
I actually have heard about them.
Yeah, this is, I believe, the second one. It is a standalone sequel to that first game. I had never heard of it. That's why it wasn't on our list. But it looks really cool. It's actually, like we were talking about last week, a dice building game where you're sort of building the stats of your character as you play by placing dice in the different slots. And it has tons of really strong reception from Board Game Geek and all these other reviewers who were just really hyped about the game. So it sounds like a good one. Seems like a good suggestion for a hype.
I mean, that's definitely been one of my favorite. I want to get more games in our collection, at least, or at least even just play Role Player more. It's more the dice building, because it's almost just fun to just collect and
love building those dice. That's the new trend that we like.
Deck building, not dice building.
Yeah, forget these decks. Next up, the other thing that we talked about last week was Dice Masters, and you alluded to earlier in the show, they're moving away from blind packs to set boxes. We loved it. Some people don't love it.
I am interested. I mean,
there are some of those people who love the CCG, I'll tell you. We got two of them. First of all, Reg Sims says the main drawback to the campaign box will be one of the best formats in playing is no longer the draft format.
That's yeah.
What will be bad, I think, going forward is every box is the same. Nobody's set will be unique. And then he lists, it's kind of funny because it's like all the things that we hate, some people love. He says, no chasing rares. Online sales will go down as nobody will be selling their duplicates. Stores have no reason to have us visit to play draft games, and how will they attract players to the stores? Interesting points. That is.
I will say the draft one, because playing Magic drafts is a whole lot of fun. You also don't feel nearly as bad because you're not like, I don't have my good collection. You just go in there and you get your cards and dice in this case. I would like to see, because I know for Netrunner and I think Game of Thrones too, they do make draft packs, like designed specifically to draft Netrunner in Game of Thrones. So maybe if this becomes popular, they can do it's everything that from the collector's box, but a draft version. Now, in terms of the other points, I mean, I understand the rare thing, because that comes up in video games too, what I've been reading up on some arguments. And you could still have good cards in the box. So you can still make and have fun with interesting. It just means that, sure, it's sort of nice when you open the pack. I remember when I was really young and Pokemon started, and I opened a Charizard in like the third pack I've ever opened. Great feeling and story. But then at the same time, I've had plenty of stories of me being trash.
It's
trash.
I mean, it's chasing the high.
Oh,
right?
there's my wallet.
Well, let's hold those thoughts and let's hear from the second person who I think is going to cover some of the same ground. Mike's for Weapons 23. Poor choice of weapons, I gotta say, but I'll continue. Says, I do like the idea of the campaign boxes, as this makes the game extremely accessible, especially for new players or just those wanting to come back into the game. However, if this is the way it's going, I really do not want to see a living card game in this format. I don't even hunt for teams because I believe nearly everything is playable in this game, no matter where it is on the meta. I believe that the game could still survive with the booster packs, as there are many players, such as myself, that love sealed and drafts for this game, and still can expand our collection while having fun with everything at the same time. This is a game where, from my experience, the meta, although always has an influence in games like these, doesn't break the game to the point that you have to hunt for cards to compete. I think it's a huge mistake to switch to a living card game.
I'm sorry, was he talking about strictly Dice Masters or?
Talking about Dice Masters.
Okay.
Talking about Dice Masters. I think you would lose the veterans that like the versatility, and in a perfect world, the campaign packs would replace the starter packs, but you could have still the booster packs on the side, so kind of a best of both worlds, maybe. To be clear, I will say in this article that announced this change, WizKids did say moving away from blind buys, but they never said anything like we're 100% firmly like at this date, no more booster packs.
They might be listening to what the veterans say and then be like, okay, we need to.
So it does sound like they're definitely moving that way, but yeah, maybe they will change things up a little bit. But it is really interesting. I'm really glad these people left these comments, because it's not a side of things we think about, because I think as people, especially you who's been in the thick of that.
I've gone deep.
We're just so over the hunting. But for some people, that's, I totally understand why that's part of the thrill. Sometimes and that's the best part of a game. But it's a tricky thing. And we'll see how it goes. But I guess if they do switch, you can just say, there are others. They'll go back to Magic.
Or the Transformers.
or Star Wars Destiny. Yeah, or something like that if you really love
we'll definitely see. It's definitely, it's interesting with Dice Masters, and I haven't played it in a while, so I don't know the meta as much, but that also becomes really annoying, because all you need, though, is like one card to be real. Black Widow.
Yeah, it's been a while since we played, but certainly at the beginning, there were certainly some overpowered cards in there.
Though it was nice, one of them came in a starter deck. Well, as bad as it was almost impossible to get a starter deck if you didn't have one.
Yeah, things have definitely changed, because now Dice Masters are a lot more abundant.
I mean, I can't blame, I guess, hard to find in the beginning, because usually things are always not printed enough when it starts.
Yeah.
But I do still stand by my points. I also don't really care if my cards go up and down in value.
Yeah, that's a whole other ball of wax. Well, that's all we have to talk about this week. We're recording this pre-game night, so we don't have any new games really to go over that we've tried out. I got some new drop mix cards. Excited to try those out. Oh, I got a Kickstarter in the mail. I got Escape from the Dark Castle, which is a cool kind of dungeon crawling game with like it was a Kickstarter Pickstarter on this show. So I'm looking forward to that. Any other, anything else? Anything off the top of your head that's more gamey?
I guess the big thing is this, because this week has been obviously very busy for us. This whole month will be, as we're preparing for all the changes we've announced. But I have been working on, and hopefully by next episode, we'll actually have played every current available story for Mansions of Madness. So a little teaser, and I'll be ranking them and which ones I like and which ones I don't.
So that'll be exciting, huh? Look forward to that. And as you said, yeah, we are doing lots of changes. Check out our announcement video if you missed it from a week back. And if you have any thoughts about the format of the show, things you'd like to see us do going forward, definitely let us know. I know we got some buzz about people wanting still to get some audio versions of shows. And that kind of feedback and stuff like that we definitely take into consideration. So leave it right here on YouTube. Leave a comment below. Or you could catch us on Twitter @RollForCrit or on our Facebook page, facebook.com/RollForCrit. Message us, talk to us any way you like.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram and Facebook as well. And of course, subscribe right here.
Yeah.
We are all over the place. We are in random packs. Unfortunately, we are commons.
Yeah, not going to get too much for us. Our value is going to stay low. And you can check us out on the web, rollforcrit.com. Of course, you're on the web now, probably. It's all the web. But rollforcrit.com, AOL keyword rollforcrit. And that's where we got all these videos. And right now, tons of games for sale that are on good sales.
But get them while they're still there.
Yeah, get them while they're still there, my friends.
But until then, I'm Will Keeler.
I'm Jonathan Estes, and you've been enjoying Roll for Crit.